Hey guys, I'm T and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, we make trendy and fun crochet tutorials twice a week, and if you haven't already, smash that like button, drop a comment down below, and subscribe to join in on the fun. In today's beginner-friendly tutorial, we're getting back to the basics and making a raw hem sweatshirt that proves with a few stitches and a modern eye, great things are always possible. Speaking of, by now, y'all already know the drill, but just in case you're new, the greatest, easy-to-follow crochet tutorials and patterns are here, with even more dropping twice weekly, so consider clicking the bell to subscribe and you'll never miss an upload. Also, do me a huge favor and give this video a big thumbs up if you like it, or 2 thumbs down if you don't. Either way, it's a great way to show support so I can keep putting out free tutorials every Wednesday and Sunday. Now it's time to get on the show, so without further ado. For this project, any category 4 yarn will work, but I used a total of 385 grams of yarn. That's 790 yards if you're stateside. As for tools, a 6mm hook, scissors, stitch markers, and a tape measure. There is a written pattern down below. Use offer code TCDDIY for a discount off any $9.99 plus order, and enter this week's pattern giveaway by telling us if you believe in the paranormal, and if so, what. I do believe, and I don't really like to think about it, otherwise I'll get scared, so I'm just going to leave it at that. We're using 3 stitches for this project, and they'll be as follows. Chain, slip stitch, single crochet, and extended half double crochet. This tutorial is made for a size small. We can adjust it for your size, and we explain how to in the video, so let's get started. Getting this top started, we're all going to grab our category 4 yarn and make a slip knot. Then we're all going to grab our 6mm hook and start off by making a chain that starts at the top of our shoulder down to where like the bottom of the sweater to be, so you can make this cropped or full length. I'd like for mine to be 13 inches or 33 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making chain 45, and I actually already have this portion completed, so I'm just going to be doing a small sample size with you. Now that we have our chain, we're all going to block off that last chain and do a chain 3. That chain 3 doesn't actually count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. Then we're going to do an extended half double crochet into every chain. So starting with the yarn over, insert your hook into that chain that we blocked off, or the 4th chain from our hook. We're going to insert, pull through. When we have 3 loops on our hook, we're going to yarn over, pull through just the first loop, then yarn over, pull through the last 3 loops. And that is our first extended half double crochet. Let's do this once more. Yarn over, insert your hook into that following chain, pull through. We're going to yarn over, pull through the first loop to get 3 loops on our hook, then yarn over, pull through all 3, and continue with 1 extended half double crochet into every stitch to reach the end of the chain. Now that we've made our way all the way down with our first row, we're now going to do back loop extended half double crochets. So chain 3 and flip. Now into that first stitch from our previous row, we're going to yarn over, insert a hook into that back loop or the loop that's furthest away from us, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through that first loop, yarn over, pull through the last 3. Once more, yarn over, into that next stitch's back loop, pull through, yarn over, pull through the first loop, yarn over, pull through the last 3. We're going to continue with 1 back loop extended half double crochet into every stitch. So we have our first 2 rows completed. From here, what we're going to do is continue to repeat our previous row, so just a back loop extended half double crochet row with no increases, no decreases, until we have a portion that can reach 2 inches past the tip of our shoulder all the way over to the base of the neck. Then I will meet you guys back right after we complete an even numbered row. So we are back. My shoulder is now complete. I have a total of 14 rows. My width is just about 7.5 inches or 19 centimeters. Now we're going to get started on our neckline. So first things first, we're going to put this up to ourselves, making sure the top end, so the opposite from where our hook is sitting at the top of our shoulder. Then we're going to insert our stitch marker into the stitch that we have that's roughly 1 inch underneath the base of our neck. I've inserted my stitch marker into the 15th stitch from the top. That's roughly 3.5 inches or 9 centimeters for me. Now from here, since we shall be along the bottom, we're going to do our back loop extended half double crochets into every stitch until we're worked into the stitch right before our stitch marker. So we are back. I've just completed my first neckline row. I've just made my way all the way up until I worked into the stitch right before my stitch marker stitch. From here, we're going to chain 3, flip our work, put 1 back loop extended half double crochet into every stitch all the way down. Then we're just going to continue to repeat this row until we have a portion that can reach across our chest over to the other side of the base of our neck. Then I will meet you guys back right after an odd number row, so along the top, then we can finish up our front panel with our second shoulder together from there. So we are back. My neckline is complete. Now I have a total amount of 25 rows. My width is just about 13.5 inches or 34 centimeters. What we're going to do from here, since we should all be along the top, is make a chain for the same amount of stitches that we skipped when we got started on our neckline. So for those of you that have my numbers, I skipped a total of 15 stitches. So from here, I made a chain 15. Then all we're going to do from here is our back loop extended half double crochet rows for the same amount of rows that we have for our first shoulder portion. So after our chain, we're going to block off that last chain and do a chain 3. Into that chain that we blocked off, or the fourth chain from our hook, insert with our first extended half double crochet, then continue with 1 extended half double crochet into every chain. Then once we reach the body portion, 1 back loop extended half double crochet into every stitch. Then just continue on with our back loop extended half double crochets for the same amount of rows as our first shoulder, like I said, with no increases, no decreases. Once we have the second shoulder portion completed, I'll meet you guys back so we can get started on the back panel. So we are back. The total width of my front panel is complete. I have a total of 17.5 inches or 44 centimeters that is unstretched. Now we're going to do from here is the back panel, which is basically the same thing as the front panel without the neckline. So let's get that started. So getting started on the back panel, what we're going to do is start by making the same chain that we made when we got started on the front panel shoulder, then just do our back loop extended half double crochet rows with no increases, no decreases for the same amount of rows as our front panel. Once we have this completed, we're going to seam everything together. So now that we have both our front and back panel completed, we're now going to seam it together, starting with our shoulder. So we're going to place our front panel on top of our back panel, then insert our hook into the top corner stitch of both panels. We're going to pull through and start with a chain 1 just to secure, and we're going to be putting 2 single crochets into every side row, working in through both the front and the back panel. So finding our first side row, this is mine right here, find that top loop, insert, find the first side row within the back panel, top loop, insert with 1 single crochet, and we're going to be doing a second single crochet. So into that same top loop within the front, same top loop within the back, and single crochet. The second one should be a little bit easier since everything is already gathered once more. Into the next side row within the front, next side row within the back, single crochet once, then single crochet a second time. We're going to continue doing this until we don't have any more side rows into the front panel left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut, then repeat on the other side. So we are back. We have just completed seaming up our shoulders. Now we're going to seam up our sides. So first things first, we're all going to start by inserting our stitch marker into any even numbered stitch from the top for the width that we'd like for the sleeve to be. Now I've inserted my stitch marker into the 26th stitch from the top. That's just about 7 inches or 18 centimeters. Then making sure that our work is still flipped wrong side out, meaning the seam for the shoulders is still along the outside. We're going to insert our hook into the bottom corner stitch of both the front and the back panel and do our single crochet seam. We're going to pull through and do a chain up of 1 to secure, and just do the first one, finding that first stitch into the front panel, insert, next stitch into the back panel, insert, then single crochet everything together. We're going to continue doing this, making our way all the way up until we reach our stitch marker. Once we have, do a chain up of 1 and cut, then repeat on the other side. Then I will meet you guys back so we can get started on the collar. So we are back. Now that everything is all seamed up, we're ready to get started on our collars. So first things first, we're going to make sure that our work is flipped right side out, meaning all of our seams are now along the inside. Then we're going to insert our hook into any one of the side rows that we have along the back of our neckline. And we're going to single crochet around our neckline, starting with 2 single crochet into every side row. So working into my neckline, this is my first side row. I'm going to find that top loop and start with 2 single crochets. There's 1 into that same top loop with a second. Following side row, find that top loop and insert with 2 single crochets. We're going to continue doing this, making our way all the way around. Once we reach the front panel, we are going to have some regular stitches to work into, so just put 1 single crochet into each of those. Then, once we made our way all the way around, slip stitch into that chain space, and I'll meet you back to get started on the length. We've just made our way all the way around with our single crochet row. We have slip stitched into that chain space. Now we're going to make a chain the length that we'd like for the collar to be. I'd like for mine to be just about 1 inch or 2 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain 6. Now that we have our chain, we're going to block off that last chain and do a chain 1. Into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, we're going to insert with a slip stitch. So insert, yarn over, and gently pull through everything on our hook. Again, into that next chain, we're going to insert, yarn over, and gently pull through everything. We're going to continue on with one slip stitch into every chain. We do want to make sure that we're not tugging too tightly after every stitch, otherwise the following row can be too tight to work into. Now that we've made our way down with our slip stitch row, we're now going to connect it into the base. So just finding that next available stitch into the base, we're going to insert with a slip stitch. Now that slip stitch doesn't actually count as a stitch, that's just to connect. Then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that following stitch into the base. Still doesn't count as a stitch, flip our work, and now put one back loop slip stitch into every stitch. So finding the last stitch from our previous row, we're going to insert in through that back loop, then yarn over and gently pull through everything on our hook, remembering we're still not tugging too tightly. From here, we're going to continue with one back loop slip stitch into every stitch. At the end of the row, we're going to chain one, flip our work, and put one back loop slip stitch into every stitch again, and I'll meet you back at the end of our row 3. Our first 3 rows are completed. Now we're going to connect it into the base once more. So just like our previous rows, we're going to find that next available stitch into the base, insert with a slip stitch, doesn't count as a stitch. Then just to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that following stitch into the base, does not count as a stitch. Flip our work and put one back loop slip into every stitch. From here, we're going to continue to repeat our 2 previous rows until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, I'll meet you back so we can seam it all together. So we are back and we have made our way all the way around with our back loop slip stitch rows. Now from here, we're going to seam it all together, and this seam is going to be an outside loop slip stitch seam. So we're going to start by making sure the work is flipped right side out, right side up, because our outside loop slip stitch seam will look like another back loop slip stitch row. We're going to insert our hook into the corner stitch, both the front and the back panel, yarn over and pull through everything. Then finding that first stitch from our front panel, we're going to insert only in through that front loop. Then into that first stitch into the back panel, insert only into that back loop. When we have these 3 loops on our hook, yarn over and pull through all 3. Again, next stitch into the front panel, insert only into that front loop. Next stitch into the back panel, insert only into that back. Then yarn over, pull through all 3 loops, and we're going to continue doing this till we don't have any more stitches left to work into. Now we're going to get started on the sleeve. So first things first, we're going to make sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up. Then insert our hook into the stitch that we have that's nearest to the side seam within our armhole. Then we're all going to make a chain the length that we'd like for the sleeve to be. Now you can make this as long or as short as you'd like. I'd like for mine to be longer, so I'm going to start by making chain 55, and that's going to be just about 16.5 inches or 42 centimeters, but I'm just going to be doing a small sample size with you. So now that we have our chain, remembering this is my sample size, we're going to do our extended half double crochets all the way back. So block off that last chain and do a chain 3. That chain 3 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. Then, starting with the 4th chain from our hook, insert with our first extended half double crochet and continue on with that until we don't have any more chains left. So we've made our way all the way down with our first row, remembering mine's a sample size, and we're going to connect it into the base. Now how we're going to connect it into the base is start by counting up the next 2 available stitches. So there's 1, there's 2. Into that second stitch, we're going to insert with a slip stitch, and that slip stitch into the base doesn't actually count as a stitch, that's just to connect. Then to work our way up to the following row, we're going to slip stitch up the following 2 stitches into the base. None of those slip stitches will count as a stitch, so there's my first. Into that following stitch into the base, insert with the next. From here, flip your work and put one back loop extended half double crochet into every stitch. Then at the end of the row, chain 3, flip our work, and then make our way back down towards the base with one back loop extended half double into every stitch. And I'll meet you back at the end of our row 3 just to connect it into the base together once more. So we are back and our first 3 rows are completed. Now we're going to connect it into the base the same way that we just did. So start by counting up the next 2 available stitches. There's 1, there's 2, slip stitch into there to connect. That slip stitch doesn't actually count as a stitch. Then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into the following 2 stitches into the base. There's 1, into that next with a second. None of those slip stitches count as a stitch. Flip our work and make your way back down with our back loop extended half doubles. We're going to continue to repeat these 2 previous rows with no increases, no decreases, making my way all the way up and around. When we don't have any more stitches left to work into, I'll meet you back so we can seam it together. So we are back. We have made our way all the way around with our sleeve. We don't have any more stitches left to work into, so now we're just going to seam it up, and the seam is actually going to be done exactly the same way as our side seam. So just to talk you guys through it, we're going to make sure the work is flipped wrong side out. Then we're going to do our same single crochet seam, making our way all the way up. When we don't have any more stitches left to work into, do a chain up of 1 and cut. Now we can get started on the cuff. So getting started on the cuff, we're going to want to make sure that our work is flipped right side out, meaning the seam that we just did for the sleeve is now along the inside. Then we're going to insert our hook into any one of the side rows that we have along the edge of our sleeve. Then we're going to insert our yarn onto our hook and put 1 single crochet into every side row. So just to do the first few, we're going to pull through, do a chain up of 1 to secure, and just finding our first side row, find that top loop and insert with 1 single crochet. Finding our following side row, find that top loop and insert with 1 single crochet again. We're going to continue on with this single crochet row, making our way all the way around. When we don't have any more stitches left to work into, I'll meet you back so we can get started on the length of our cuff. So now that we made our way all the way around with our single crochet row, we're now going to get started on the cuff. Now the cuff is actually going to be done pretty much the same way that we did for the collar. So right after we slip stitch into that chain space, we're all going to make a chain the length that we'd like for the cuff to be. Now you can make this as long or as short as you like. I would like for mine to be just about 2 inches or 5 centimeters. So I'm going to start by making a chain 10. Then just do our same back loop slip stitch rows with no increases, no decreases, making our way all the way around. Well, we don't have any more stitches left to work into. I'll meet you back so we can seam it together. So we've made our way all the way around with our back loop slip stitch rows for the cuff. Now from here, we're just going to seam it together, doing the same seam that we did for the collar. So an outside loop slip stitch seam. So just to talk you guys through it, we're going to make sure that our work is still flipped right side out. Then we're going to do our outside loop slip stitch seam till we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut, then repeat on the other side. Once we have both of our sleeves completed, we are all done. The last thing we have to do is just weave in all of our ends. And there you have it, y'all. Hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Join us on Instagram, Pinterest, or Twitter. Those links are down below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Catch you on the next one. Bye.